Welcome back. As you can probably tell, I've added the environment to the game. So last time it was just a black background with ships fighting, and now we've got new stuff everywhere. So the first thing I guess to talk about is the starfield. That's what I made first. And so you can tell that no matter which direction I look, there's a random distribution of stars. And they are locked to basically not move with the camera. So I'm flying this camera around this little debug area, and you can see the stars are not moving. I've also added planets, and the planets are not moving. I also added a local star, and that doesn't move. So all of these effects are essentially fixed to the origin and do not change with camera orientation changes or position changes. So one of the things I fixed up was the star's light now influences things. So you primarily will notice it on the ship because now the ship is lit towards the stars in the environment, and I have it set up where you can have up to 4 stars, so that might be a cool effect. But the ship will reflect light and stuff now relative to the star, whereas before it was just a random direction that I chose for debugging purposes. The planets are also lit in that direction. And as you can see on this Earth-like planet, there's a lit side and then an unlit side, and there's some city lights on the dark side. And so, like that planet there is just a regular planet without any life on it, and this one was simulated or created to simulate like a Earth-like planet. The way I made these planets is actually using 4 textures. There's a solid ocean texture, there's a solid terrain texture, there's a solid city light around the planet texture, and then there's a map texture that kind of drives all of the blending of textures. So on that map texture, it's a solid black texture, and wherever you draw green, it will fill in the land texture, and wherever you leave it black, it fills in the ocean texture. So you can design your own planets pretty quickly. The city lights texture also listens to that green channel. So where you see lights back there, there is green painted. So the dark area is the ocean, and that area is the terrain. And so if I were to add a rotation to this planet, you could see it update in real time. And that'd be a pretty cool demo, I think. So I should probably do that. But right now I don't have the rotation hooked up. What else is there? So looking at the starfield, you might think this is some sort of cube map, if you're familiar with skyboxes and that kind of stuff. But I chose a different approach in that if I enter this debug mode, you'll be able to see. The approach I took is to actually define 3D points all over the space of a cube. So if I zoom far out, you can see that this is just a giant cube. And there are little specks scattered throughout. And so these are randomly placed and whatnot, and they have little random color variations that you can tweak on a level by level basis, hopefully in the future. So you can create different like fills, like a galaxy that's more reddish versus a galaxy that's more bluish or something like that. The planets are on a different scale from the stars, which is why you see the stars kind of scattered amongst the planet, which in real life makes no sense because the planets are much tinier than the stars. The local star of the solar system, which is around here somewhere, here is also on a different scale, so it's kind of tiny. The direction that the starlight provides is relative to the origin, which is why the planets work. As you can see, this planet is kind of behind the star, yet still lit as if the star is up there. So that's because it's using the origin as to create the direction vector. The reason I did it this way is I hope to, in the future, just create a lightspeed effect, maybe to transition levels or something. And so by having these defined as points, I can have a camera. Let's consider that star there. I can have the camera position saved, and then I can slide the camera forward and save that position, and then use these 2 points for the star here to connect a line, and then bump up over time, slide the camera forward, which will increase that line, and bump up the light intensity and add an increasing bloom effect to potentially create like a stretching of the star effect. And so hopefully that'll work out. I don't know, it'd be fun to implement. But right now everything in here is in standard dynamic range, and I'm thinking I want to make a deferred renderer. And well, I'm wanting to make this HDR, but I'm also thinking I want to switch this over from being a forward renderer to being a deferred renderer. And so I'm waiting on that decision before I start implementing post-processing effects like bloom and whatnot. So like right now when you look at the star, it's just a star. There's no like corona or something around it. There's no like haze that you would see, or what's the term for it? Like the lens flare that you see in movies and whatnot. And so I think I want to add stuff like that, but I'm going to wait until I decide on the final rendering system. Right now, most of this is being rendered in a kind of debug way. Oh, and also these stars are instance rendered, which is why I can render this mini without having any sort of drop in frame rate. So I think that's about it in terms of this update. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, but I guess we'll see. Thanks for watching.